The theme of last year's Destiny going into this year video was that I thought Bungie needed to innovate the game more. 2020 was a tumultuous year for Destiny and for, everything, with the quality of the game swinging wildly back and forth. In 2021, I wanted innovation. I wanted things to get shaken up. I wanted more than just more Destiny. I don't know if we hit that, but I know we hit something that might be just as important. So how'd we do? And what am I looking for going into 2022? 2021, or the Beyond Light era, starting in Season 13 anyway, gave us some of the most consistently high quality seasonal offerings that we've had in a long time. Season 13, 14, and 15 were all pretty strong entries into the franchise, with the storytelling component being among the strongest it has ever felt. While I don't think the storytelling component getting stronger was necessarily innovative, I don't think something going from bad to good is exactly innovation, it certainly helped breathe a lot of life back into the game, at least until the story of that season ended. 2021 was the year of quality of life improvements. The overall state of the game improved massively. One of the biggest improvements in my eyes was the reduction of the level increase in between seasons from 50 down to 10, which made getting to max level a much less tedious experience season over season. A lot of people were not stoked at how many new guns launched with Beyond Light, and Bungie responded by saying they were going to be dumping way more weapons into the game. And they did. Weapon sunsetting, removed. Armor mods, streamlined. Trials, reworked. Security, increased. Stasis, nerfed over time. Mostly fine now. Very fun in PvE. Armor transmog, added, with some complaints, but still added. Vendor systems, revamped. Crossplay, added. Titles, guilding system. Ikora, voice acted, again. Employees, hired. Weapon crafting, added. And then already getting quality of life adjustments based on feedback. Are these things innovation? Is crossplay innovative? Is getting rid of weapons sunsetting innovation? I think certain things could be argued yes, other things no. Is changing the light subclasses to the stasis system innovation? I would argue that how stasis was implemented innovated on the subclass experience, so it's certainly an extension of that. But if 2021 did anything, it improved the quality of the game considerably compared to where we were a year ago. Obviously, we're not perfect, but a lot of progress was made. For 2022, I am worried about stagnation, specifically in the end game and seasonal content. One of these things has an easier time getting adjusted, and the other does not. Seasonal activities in the Beyond Light era were solid, but didn't really push the envelope too hard because they're match-made seasonal activities and thus need to remain accessible, which basically means simple. Season 13's activity was fun because it gave us a lot of stuff to kill, which is an issue that plagued the game for a very long time, and I still think does a little bit, while Season 14 and 15's seasonal activities were also satisfactory, but nothing revolutionary. Season 16's activity in the PsyOps Battlegrounds I think is a rather strong entry thanks to the enemy density and the Synaptic Spear in the final chunk of the activity. But ultimately, there are only so many ways to make shooting aliens fun or interesting in Destiny after 7.5 years. There are only so many ways to make jump on the plate, do stuff with the ball, and push the thing interesting. It's not really stimulating anymore. It hasn't been for a little while. Seasonal gameplay and the format is stagnating. The story definitely carries it. But this is likely a case of people are enjoying it enough, so let's just keep it rolling. And Bungie doesn't really have time to generate more than what they're doing per season. If you're both crunched for time and people tend to not have a huge issue with what you're doing, then experimenting is probably not really going to be on the table. So if we're going to be doing the same mechanics, step on the plate, do stuff with the ball, push the thing, we need at least some new ways to kill enemies. enter build crafting. Build crafting has only been getting better as seasons have gone on. Revamping the subclasses to use the stasis format is going to do wonders. On top of the seasonal artifacts' weird, sometimes downright insane offerings. But it's not all rainbows. This is the year that I think Bungie needs to do something about champions. I'm starting to be fatigued by champions, not fighting them, but in the way that I need to fight them. Mylan Games put up a video on Twitter recently. It is linked in the description. If you guys don't know Mylan, by the way, great lore content. Please check out his channel, also linked in the description. I had quite a lot of people ask me to respond to this. And in the video, essentially, Mylan talks about endgame content being lock and key type content. The lock, in this case, consists of things like champions and match game shields, with the key being equip the correct things, or you're not doing this activity with any success. If you do, then hooray, you win, but if you don't, you lose. I haven't held a huge issue with champions, historically speaking. The actual act of fighting them, anyway. I know others have, but I'm starting to feel that fatigue, in addition to the seasonal artifact, and that's because Bungie has been improving the build crafting aspect of the game. When champions were first introduced, it was a novelty, but build crafting potential was much lower in Season 8 compared to where it is right now. It didn't really feel like a big deal, because the most build crafting you could really do was subclass branch, plus exotic, plus maybe perk on a gun. And that's really it. Think of all the crazy builds that are available in the game right now, and that will continue to appear as Solar and Arc 3.0 debut. Our build crafting potential is the highest it has ever been, and will only continue to grow as those subclasses get revamped. Unfortunately, the issue that I run into, as does everyone else, is that this lock and key type endgame limits build crafting in the place where it should be the most explorable, the endgame. As I tend to say in videos, it is tough to place a value on a build in 90 to 95% of content, because you could have the most unoptimized setup of all time and still just clobber everything in the game. Most builds completely break down in endgame content, especially as a solo, because you need to hit all of these requirements in order to even stand a chance against the enemies. Hell, you can't physically kill overload champions outside of the highest burst damage numbers from multiple players at the same time in GM content. There are basically zero activities at the highest levels that don't have any of these requirements. As soon as you start to hit legend or higher, you need some form of champion mod or elemental damage. Most of the time, multiple forms, in order to have success. Not the most success at all. And being limited to a handful of weapon archetypes in the endgame can also stifle that creative freedom. I understand Bungie's idea with the seasonal artifact. It's to get people to have to constantly shift their loadouts and their guns and their subclasses to meet the current season's challenge. It's a way that Bungie can force meta shifts without having to tune every single weapon in the game every single season. And the idea behind that isn't bad. It's fun to have things get freshened up season over season, breaking out new exotics and archetypes that I haven't played with in a while. But that was fine when build crafting consisted of just picking some guns and your subclass, and that's it. Nowadays, things are a little different. Lucent Brood, on the other hand, do not require any sort of champion mod or elemental damage. They are interesting, if somewhat now predictable, enemies with strong abilities. In the Legendary campaign, they proved to be very lethal, and I would much rather fight them over champions at this point in the game's life. The issue that I have with the seasonal artifact specifically is that it's the thing that provides the champion mods. I otherwise don't really have an issue with it otherwise, especially with the ability now to unlock all of the mods. I like the seasonal offerings outside of the champion mods. I'm always going to be on the side of adding things to the game as opposed to replacing it when possible, but my main concern for the endgame right now is that the desire to build craft is being limited by a restrictive endgame. I think high-level content that features and does not feature champions are both possible at the same time. I do have a desire to be tested in high-level combat where things are very lethal in certain combat situations, yes. But I also have a desire to test myself at my maximum power, whether it be through shredding through tons of enemies or just being able to see what life is like without having to worry about 2 champion types and 3 different elements all needed on my loadout at the exact same time. I don't know how realistic it is to ask for extreme innovation in a game that already knows what it is. Features, yes. Always going to be looking for new features, and maybe that's the word I should be using now, features. Destiny's been out for 7.5 years now. Bungie knows how the rest of this saga is going to go. The game's not going to be changing in a significant way. What we have now will continue to improve. Maybe we get loadouts in-game, maybe we get better social systems, in-game LFG, other big features that can make our lives easier as we play the game. But strikes are going to keep being strikes, you know what I mean? And seasons are going to keep having a 3 or 6 player activity that are like strike intensity +1 with interesting story bits for 6 to 8 weeks. And then a legend version will come out somewhere in there, or a master version, whatever. And the game is going to still be about farming guns and shooting aliens. Destiny knows what it is. I still want Bungie to innovate on the game when possible. It's up to them to reduce how stagnated things can feel. They did it with gameplay in the campaign. I now have a very difficult time suggesting buying previous expansions because if you played the Witch Queen's campaign first, if that was your first campaign, it blows Shadowkeep and Beyond Light out of the water. You're going to be like, what the hell is this? And if the campaign can improve that much, I don't see why other parts of the game couldn't also do that. PvP probably has the most amount of room to innovate. I think keeping the sandbox balanced and fresh is one of the most vital things for the PvP experience, and Bungie has at least been trying on that side of things, but maps, modes, anything, you can do anything. I know Bungie spoke about maps, I know Trials got a hefty revamp, which was really good, but you can do whatever you want here. Even if it doesn't work, at least it's something that was experimented with. It does feel like most of the effort is going into Trials, and I guess that's not the worst spot to be putting a lot of effort, but still, PvP, you can do anything. I think that's kind of where I'm at with Destiny this year. I think with build crafting getting so much spotlight, we need more places to really see what we're capable of doing. I think it's time to do something about champions, and I think it's time to think about stagnation when it comes to the endgame, champions, seasonal content, all of those kinds of things. Even some stuff where I can go in as a solo and just wreck face. That would be nice too. You know, solo content right now is this restricted Lost Sector stuff, and while that's fine for, you know, maybe farming exotics, even more can be done for some solo gamers out there who want to try out a super destructive build but can't because the arms dealer only has 14 enemies in it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.